Hi, y'all. Come here, Mike. Okay. Just waiting for her to join.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. People tell me my audio gets messed up, so let me just adjust. Tell me if you can't hear me.
I can hear you okay.
Hopefully that works. I love
Yay.
your eyeliner. You look beautiful.
Thank you. It's my friend Meredith's eyeliner. She actually just came out with a book too called Fairest, which I highly recommend for anyone who's a little bit older and wants to read a really beautiful memoir about identity.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on here today.
Thank you for having me. Can I just say you are so beloved? Like my DMs have just been filled with fans who are like, "You're going live with Lili." Like people really, really love you a lot, and it's really beautiful to see.
I have very dedicated, loving fans. I'm very, very lucky. I'm glad they're being sweet to you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
no, nothing but kindness, nothing but
Good.
kindness.
Good. That's wonderful. I'm happy to hear. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi everyone. It's such a pleasure to be joining you today. My name is Kimberly Drew, and I'm a writer and curator based in New York City. A lot of the work that I do kind of appears across a few different disciplines. So, I'm trained as an art historian. I've worked in museums, in galleries, and then outside of them as well. And what else? And then I also work a bit in fashion as well too. So I find myself kind of in a mix of different spaces. But through all of those spaces, I try to think a lot about amplifying underserved voices, people who are traditionally pushed to the margins, and trying to figure out ways that, especially institutions, can better serve those voices and those people. So those are the things that keep me up at night.
And so you're an author and you have a book.
Yes.
Do you
Yes.
want to tell us about?
Happily with joy. So I wrote this book called This Is What I Know About Art, which just came out this week on Tuesday. So it's available everywhere that you buy books. And in the book, I write about my own career in the arts, working in galleries and working in museums, and some of the lessons that I learned along my journey. I'm a person who, and anyone who's following me knows, I'm very outspoken. In high school, I actually got most opinionated. But later in life, especially when I began a career in the arts, people started to label me as an activist. And it was a label that I really didn't like. I felt like, to me, activism was tying yourself to a tree or going on a hunger strike or not having a job at a traditional institution. And in this book, I really write about how specifically how some excuse me, write specifically to some of the smaller changes that or smaller, I guess, steps that I've taken in my own journey towards understanding myself as an activist.
Right.
Because, at the end of the day, activism is really believing in something. It's really making your voice heard until you see those changes made. It doesn't have to be big, grand, sweeping gestures. It can be those small things that you have. It can be those tiny moments of courage. All those things are necessary if we're going to get to a better place than where we are right now.
Right. And so have you been using like writing art during this time? Has it been inspiring you to write?
Yes. So it's interesting, like pandemic time, it was increasingly difficult to stay focused.
Yeah.
I think everyone can agree. In those first few weeks, you're like, what do I do? Am I a person? Are these my hands? Like there was so much to try to make sense of. And I think in the last few weeks, especially, like I felt myself falling into a new normal, which in its own way felt really weird because there's so many ways in which especially the pandemic disproportionately affected folks. And so getting accustomed to it is almost like submitting in some way. And so I wanted to stay charged up, but you also can't be angry every single day. And of course, within the last few weeks, as we're seeing, especially like an incredible coming together of folks to say no to police brutality, I personally am like kind of shocked actually. I've been more productive than I've been in a really long time. So I've been writing quite a bit and interviewing friends and trying to make sure that when I feel, you know, especially from a mental health perspective, good, that I go out and march with others. So I've been feeling like strangely very productive and also trying not to burn out, but I feel a little revved up.
No, that's, I mean, I think times like these are the perfect opportunity. I mean, unfortunate as they may be, obviously, they produce a lot of art. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of art comes from, I think this time that we're going through right now is almost like a revolution. So I think it's, or I hope it is at least. And I think a lot of art comes from spaces like that. And it's also interesting you mentioned, you know, falling into a new norm is interesting because, you know, I have a friend who just the other day was like, yeah, I'm feeling sort of at odds with my boyfriend, and I feel sad, but it's just the pandemic. I know it'll, you know. So people, I think, are kind of maybe pushing aside their mental health because they're blaming it on the pandemic, and it's like, you know, this is not something to just be like, it'll get back to normal, because I don't think the world's not just gonna go back to normal, and so I think it's important for people to, yeah, I mean, maybe this is kind of the new norm, at least for a while, but to find an outlet to make things better and don't just kind of sit around and wait for the world to return, because if anything, well, it's certainly not going to return to the way it was before. So again, kind of like, I think people are getting into this mindset of like, oh, well, I'm just feeling this way right now. It's like, well, right now is the present, and it's how you feel. So let's not ignore that. Let's let's help each other out. Let's figure it out. Let's find something creative to do. Um, I mean, I think people ask me what I've been doing. I definitely find writing therapeutic. And do you find that you're writing about race and about this movement, or are you like focusing on other things creatively, or both?
Yeah, it's an interesting time. So I've been doing a mix of things. A lot of my writing, and I don't know if this happens for you too, but I don't finish. You know, it's like really hard to finish things that you're not super passionate about. So I find myself when I get opportunities to write about identity or art, I feel really like, okay, I can do this. You know, like I've definitely written copy for like, you know, nothing. You know, and I just feel myself procrastinating and all this stuff. And so it's definitely comes with a little bit more ease in moments when I can, you know, speak with really flowery language about revolution or about identity or about my own experiences, because I'm the master of my own experience in the way that everyone who's watching this is the master of their own experience. And so you don't have to second guess yourself. But right now I'm actually writing about one of my favorite parties called Poppy Juice, which is a queer party based in New York. And it's been really nice to have an opportunity to write about them because they're my friends. But also I'm writing about them from a beauty perspective. And so talking about not just like beauty, but
Hmm.
the beauty of that space and the beauty of the way that they cultivate that space. So it's been nice to have a little bit of opportunity to take myself a little bit away from maybe more academic writing or like head down, like, and more just like, I remember being at this party and it made me feel this way.
No, that's awesome. What do you think inspired you to write about what you write about? Obviously, as a Black woman, and you know, I talked to Monique Melton the other day, who's like a really wonderful inspirational speaker, and she was saying like that I've been Black all my life. This is not news to me, and I thought, you know, that's I think an important thing to drive home for a lot of people. A lot of non-colored people are looking at the situation as maybe like news, like this is news to them, what's going on, and the police brutality. And I think um, you know, you've obviously dealt with racism your whole life, and so is that something that you've always felt inspired to write about, or like tell me how you kind of came about writing what you write about.
Yeah, for sure. Before I start, I just want to let you know, like, no one says colored or non-colored anymore.
Okay.
Um, it's all good. We're all in a process of learning. But I will say, for me as a writer, I was definitely reluctant to being a writer because I think it's really hard. Like, for so much of my life, I was like, this is such a hard thing to do. I don't think I'm smart enough. I don't think my opinions are valuable enough. And it was really having good friends who helped push me over that kind of that hump. It's funny. I don't know if you watch Drag Race.
I do. I have seen.
Okay, great. So like Miss Cracker, who is on All Stars right now, we actually used to work together. And Miss Cracker was my first editor ever. And having that support, having a friend who I really respect their mind, looking at something that I wrote, I did an interview, which is like the easiest way to start writing, period. Like, because most of the words aren't yours. Um, and from there, I just kept going and kept going and kept going. But I've written about a lot of different things. Like I said, I feel more comfortable speaking from I. So I saw this, I felt this, whatever. And I think, you know, largely in part to a lot of women journalists of our era, you see a lot more of that type of writing. Like I love Lenny Letter because I think they really revolutionized the way in which women tell their own stories.
Hmm.
Or even what Tavi Gevinson was doing with Rookie. Like there's so much more room for personal experience. But yeah, for me, that's where I feel alive. But I also love the challenge of writing about something completely separate from myself, separate from identity, and all that stuff. But they don't get finished as quickly.
Of course, yeah, because they're not coming straight from you.
Yeah.
Well, so is there anything like any particular message that you feel like you need to drive home to the people who are watching and willing to listen and learn?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. I was going to ask you, what kind of writing do you do?
I write poetry.
Ooh, I love that.
Ah, thanks. So, yeah, I write poetry, and obviously this time has been full of grief and anger and a lot of repressed emotions for everyone. And I think it's been an interesting time to be a writer. I think a lot it's there's a lot that comes out, and it's very therapeutic for me. But it's also, I think, I've learned a lot during this pandemic. I think it's interesting how at first it was so you couldn't go a hour without hearing the word coronavirus, and now that's like completely, not completely, but like very much so on the back burner. And now it's all about this movement that we're going through right now, which is wonderful. But so it's sort of been like this weird isolation. Now we're in huge protest groups, you know. Um, so it's been sort of a flux of emotions, but it's good. It's good to use this time to channel your artistic energy into something positive and creative. So yes, what were you?
Yeah, yeah. I love to hear that because I think more people need to think about the power of art and not like, and I don't know if you share your poetry or not, but I think having those outlets helps us be more human, helps us be softer and more compassionate because I think we fail when we harden ourselves, you know, like that lack of compassion, that lack of understanding humanity across, you know, someone else who is not you is why we're in this moment of brutality. Like people aren't acknowledging other people's humanity and respecting their lives and the value of their lives, you know, like that's why people say Black Lives Matter. um, and so yes, it's really beautiful, especially for you to continue this practice of writing. And anyone who's watching, I hope that you guys are doing your own version of art making as well, especially too because, and we were DMing about this, but it's so important to have art in moments of protest, because it is art that helps us, one, understand ourselves, like we were just talking about, but also it's graphic design and illustration that we see people using to connect each other. Like I know where I'm going out later to rally because of someone's graphic design project, you know? So the art that we do and the art that we make is essential to the movement. It's not just some lay activity that isn't in any way political or connected. there's so many ways in which those things can connect and have historically connected. And I think that's probably the biggest message. Um, and I think it gets lost sometimes for folks.
Yeah,
But it's so important.
it is. It is. I totally agree. What you just said about it reminded me, and I'll have to post it after we're finished. A little excerpt that I read from an author. I don't want to butcher it, so I'm not going to say it now, but I'll post it after this. But yeah, what you just said reminded me of that. But I mean, is there anything else? Like this is your time. I obviously
Yeah.
I want you to speak freely. However, if you're totally cool, done, that's totally fine. But I just wanted to obviously give you this opportunity. I will order your book right after this. I can't wait to read it.
Thank you. I'll show it one more time just because selling a book in the middle of a pandemic, let me tell you, Lily, is one of the wildest experiences of my adult life. But I'm really happy and proud of this book because I think amongst many other reasons that I wrote it, I think that it's very important because it's a YA book. It's literally, so for everyone who can see, it's tiny. It's also $9. And so it's really hopefully easy to access. It's also available on audiobook for anyone who is a lover of audiobooks or blind or low vision. There's multiple ways to access the book. But I wrote it specifically for young audiences because it is so essential that young people feel inspired to get involved in the arts, whether that's the poetry that they're writing or the art that they're making at home, or should they go on to study art history in university. We need more diverse voices in the arts as soon as we can.
Yeah.
We're in a moment right now where we really need to be restructuring and having much bigger imaginations about who can be a part of the dialogue.
Yeah.
And this book, at its very basic core, if I was successful as an author, is an invitation to young people. So any parents who are watching or young people who are watching, please give it a chance, give it a shot. It's available at a lot of libraries as well. I've been buying copies for free libraries around the country. So if you run a free library and need a copy, please DM me. I will send you one. And yeah, so I think for me, it's just an incredible moment that is equally inspiring and terrifying. I was out on Tuesday and marching with folks, and for the first time in a while, I was holding my arms up and saying, hands up, don't shoot. And it just, like, even saying it right now, it gave me chills.
Yeah.
That it's a chant that I have to return to. And walking past police officers and being genuinely afraid it's just a really heavy moment. And so I guess the last thing I want to say before we end this is that I hope everyone is taking good care of themselves right now, because it's so important to pause and think and to normalize the difficulty of this moment and understand that there is an incredible weight on so many of us. And yeah, we deserve to have those moments where we take time for ourselves. Like, there is a revolution that's raging. Also, you will be no good if you are not well. Like, you need to take your break and come back. Or if for whatever reason you're not able to show up in the ways that others do, like, hold compassion for yourself. There was a really beautiful march yesterday in Washington for the Black Disabled Lives Matter, and seeing especially the disability justice community and especially people of color who are disabled rallying together because they're disproportionately affected, and also because of a myriad of reasons unable to show up in some ways. And so it's important for all of us to check ourselves in the language that we're using, both with ourselves and others, and understand that care is essential. Taking the time and space that you need is essential. Showing up as your best self is essential. Yeah, so that's my piece.
Really, really important message that I think maybe not a lot of people have been focusing on, and that's so incredibly important. You have to be obviously taking care of yourself amidst all of this, because it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so this is a fight that needs to continue, and you can't burn yourself out within the first week. So I really can't wait to read your book. I think it's such an important message for everyone, for communities. I think art obviously I'm an actor. I'm I love the arts. That's like my passion, and I think it's so important to to have more diverse voices in every single platform, in every I don't even know what you would call it, art, in every form of art, you know. I'm
Mhm.
not very articulate today, so
No, you're killing it. You're
but
killing it. I was so nervous when we started. I'm still so nervous. So I'm with you in solidarity. You sound great.
oh
You're doing great, sweetie.
but no, you did so well. Really, thank you so much for coming on here and speaking. What you're doing is really, really important. I will order your book as soon as we hang up, and I will remind my fans to order it as well. Thank you again. I really appreciate it. Stay safe as you continue to protest and whatever it is that, you know, you're putting your life on the line every time you fight for the
It's
rights.
wild out here.
Yeah. But thank you so much again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lili. Be well and take care.
Yeah. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.